Don't weld your diff. I know it's tempting. I know you want power going to both rear wheels, but don't weld your diff. Instead, install a proper high-performance limited slip differential. Let's talk a little bit about why you want a proper limited slip and why you do not want to weld your differential. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, welded differentials work great in whatever category that you are inventing in your head right now to post down in the comments to tell me that I'm wrong. That's fine. Yes, there are some very limited applications where a welded differential or a spool is the way to go. Road courses, autocrosses are not that situation, and let's talk about why. So first off, you may have seen a fantastic video that General Motors actually put out in like 1937 explaining how a differential works. That video is going to do a much better job than I ever will, so go watch it after you watch this. It'll do a great job at getting you into just how a differential works and why you want a differential and how it does some of its magic. Paraphrasing and getting down to where literally the rubber meets the road and explaining why you want a diff is, well, we'll go to the whiteboard to show you exactly why. When you are negotiating a corner, let's say this is our corner here, your car is wide. It is however wide it is. You have an outside tire negotiating this part of the corner. You have an inside tire negotiating this part of the corner. It's pretty easy to see that the radius of the corner is different here than it is here. You're negotiating two different radiuses with the same vehicle. And because you're in the same vehicle, because those two tires are attached to one car, they are doing it at the same time. So you've got a shorter distance being traveled by the inside wheel, a longer distance being traveled by the outside wheel. They're covering those distances over the same time. So what has to happen? Well, yes, they have to go at different speeds. And don't at me with, well, technically this one's moving faster. There's a time dilation that happened. Don't come at me with relativity, bro, okay? Not really make enough of a difference for it to matter in this situation. Basically, you need to go faster on the outside than you do on the inside. Now, with a traditional open differential, what's going to happen is the torque from your drivetrain is going to follow the path of least resistance. And generally what that means is it's going to move away from the more heavily loaded outside wheel, move towards the inside wheel. In most situations, you're not ever going to notice, but in a high performance situation where you are already at the limits of those tires' adhesion, all that torque is going to essentially overwhelm that inside tire and you are going to get what we commonly refer to as the one wheel peel. Now, to talk a little bit more about how that feels, I'm gonna bring on my friend Chris, who you may recognize from previous videos. Let's try this.
That was weird.
No weirder than the last one. All right, so in Club Spec Mustang, we have a few options. We can use our regular stock clutch type Ford limited slip. We can actually replace those clutches with a higher performance carbon fiber option rebuild kit.
Because ultimately what's going on here is that the clutches in here are worn out. The diff isn't bad, it can be rebuilt.
Right, yeah, it's literally just gears, but those gears are coupled by friction clutches after hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of miles and a lot of hard use. Those clutches, just like the clutch that connects your engine to your transmission, that clutch gets worn out and it can no longer couple the torque from one side to the other. So we opted for a more permanent solution, which was an Eaton True Track diff. Now, instead of clutches, this couples the torque using a system of worm gears and roller gears. Okay. And I think for our situation, where we've got a bunch of drivers of different skill levels, you're not going to notice that, oh, I'm driving with a different type of differential. You're just going to notice, oh, the car comes off of corners really well. The car goes into corners really well. And that's sort of an underappreciated factor of a good diff, is we're not just talking about getting off of corners well with torque going to both of our rear tires. We're talking about getting into corners well. Good differential can really improve feel, controllability, and just sort of the precision that you can use when you're trail braking into a corner. And that's something that you might not be able to express that you notice it just yet, but you will feel that because you'll be able to get away with more stuff entering corners and staying on the brake later and trailing off the brake at varying speeds. With that said, you'll be in this car in a couple weeks on track. What are you gonna sort of think about? I mean, I don't want you to think about the diff because ideally you just want to focus on what the car is doing. But having driven it before, what are some things that you are hoping it does for you, and that you would like to use to improve your own driving?
Well, ultimately, I think this will fix every problem I have with my driving, and I'll be an expert.
That's it. Video over, folks. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
But no, I hope that the first time out on track with the car, I don't really notice this, that I can focus on getting those lines perfected and learning how the car reacts to things.
Yeah, and I think what the result is going to be eventually is you'll find that you're getting on throttle earlier, your skills developing more of a touch for trail braking will improve because you're not worried about what the diff is doing. You're just sort of worried about what's happening in the seat of your pants. And it's going to be sort of a more intuitive, more transparent experience. That's my hope anyway. So the only thing that's left to do is get this thing installed in the car. Obviously we have the old diff out here. We need to put the new diff in. We'll transfer over the ring gear. We will get this stuffed in the differential housing, get it all oiled up, and we'll head to the track in a couple weeks. Hey, if you've been following along with this Club Spec Mustang project and you are interested in doing some of the same stuff, we invite you to check out the Sports Car Club of America. They are a partner on this video. They're longtime partners with Grassroots Motorsports, and they have long been the organization where we have done a lot of racing, a lot of track driving, a lot of autocrossing, and just a lot of having fun with cars. If you want more information about all their programs, from autocross to Track Night in America, where you can take your daily driver out on a racetrack in a non-competitive, low-pressure, fun environment, all the way to hardcore road racing and time trials, check them out online at SCCA.com. The way that the ring gear meets the pinion gear is fairly critical. So there's a series of shims that I'm putting in backwards. There's a series of shims that space the differential properly side to side, so we have proper engagement between the ring gear and the pinion gear. And the way you start out is by just reinstalling the original shims in there. But you may need to, once you do that, we'll do some measuring and we will determine whether we have the right set of shims in there. So we can see we've got a little bit of free play in the diff, what's known as backlash. We need to know how much of that we have. So we've got this little gauge here, which will show us how much that differential is moving, how much free area we have. And that's how we'll know if we've got the shims in there right, or if we have to use additional shims or a different size shim pack. We put the shims back in their original positions, and those shims control the lateral location of that differential. Now we switched from the Ford diff to the Eaton diff, and production tolerances being what they are, and wear and tear being what it is, things might change a few thousandths of an inch. We only had about an 8,000th of a gap that we had to make up. We were at about 20 thousandths of backlash, and we needed 12 thousandths of backlash. So before we went ordering different shims to move this differential back and forth, we just swapped the two that we had, hoping that would scoot the thing, not too much, and get it in the right position. And turns out it did. We went from about 20 thousandths of backlash to about 12 thousandths of backlash, which is at the upper end of what Ford specifies. It specifies 8 to 12 thousandths of an inch of backlash. 12 is going to be just fine. We're going to run high quality fluid in here, so I'm not really worried about that at all. So that is what we are looking at for essentially the gap between the face of the ring gear and the bevel of the pinion gear. So next we'll tighten these caps down to their proper torque specs. We'll actually put some paint on the face of these gears, and that'll give us an idea of how this ring gear is meshing with that pinion gear. We'll make sure we have a nice flat contact area. Because we're reinstalling essentially the same ring and the same pinion, I'm not really worried that that's not going to come out right. If it doesn't come out right, that's when we can start shimming the pinion gear a little bit, but that's a way more involved operation. We're crossing our fingers we don't have to get into that. But so far so good. We're just about ready to seal everything and close it up. So now that we know everything is within spec, our backlash is correct, our gear engagement is correct, we need to get the axles back in the sides and get them fastened inside this differential. Then we'll get this cover back on, we'll get fluid in there, we'll get the rest of our rear suspension back together, and then we will see you at the track. We are back from the track and we need to take a look at this V-Box data because it is in some ways better than I really anticipated it being, but it's also unsurprising because a good diff like this Eaton True Track that we have in our Mustang now, which is allowed by the SCCA Club Spec Mustang guidelines, a good diff can really transform the handling, the feel, and really the approach you take to many corners in a car. And it really kind of has in our Mustang, and the data bears that out. So when everybody thinks of, okay, what's a diff gonna do for me on track? They think of, well, corner exit. I'm gonna get rid of that one wheel peel. I'm gonna be able to exit corners with both wheels putting power down. And yeah, that's true. And we actually see some gains in that regard. Here, exiting the final corner, we've got a little bit better push out of that last corner. But where we're seeing the big differences, and this is pretty cool, is on some of our corner entries, like right here into what is our turn one at Circuit Florida. It's kind of it's a tight corner, but it's kind of a long entry. You're sort of trail braking very deep into that corner. And look at the extra speed on this green trace. That's our trace with the Eaton True Track diff versus our baseline with our just completely smoked stock diff. Look at the trace on the corner entry. We're carrying a lot more speed into that corner. So what's going on there is that diff is allowing both those rear wheels to decelerate at the ideal rate as we're trail braking into that corner. Now realize that when you're trail braking into a corner, you're turning, but you're still braking. So the outside wheel is going to be describing a larger radius than the inside wheel. So ideally, they're going to want to decelerate at different rates, and the diff is cleanly and smoothly allowing the car to do that. And corner entry is much more predictable. It's much more balanced. And you can see in so many spots here, we are carrying more speed into the corners. And yes, I'm still making mistakes, which, hey, look, I'm just a dude, okay? This is kind of clear driver error here, but look at how much more speed we had until I screwed up here. So really, really good news there. A lot more speed through this corner here. Let's see where that is. This is sort of right in our middle section here, turning into that right-hander there, kind of a mid-speed, really, really fast second gear or slow third gear right-hander. So carrying more speed all the way through there, carrying a lot more speed on the exit, coming up through through here. This is a downhill left-hand corner where you're kind of coming over a crest and the car is unweighting, but we're able to get back on the power much sooner and much cleaner. And we can see, what do we got? Over a mile an hour faster just in this one spot right here, and as much as almost over a 2 mile an hour gain on exit speed right here. So we see this diff, this Eaton True Track, working not just in acceleration the way we clearly expect it to, but in corner entry as well. And we also see spots like this right here, where we are picking up just gobs of speed. And again, this was likely a little bit of a driver error, but this graph should look a little more like this one, just maybe a little bit slower. But we're looking at like an 8 mile an hour difference there, and that is in this sort of long right-hand corner here, which is kind of an uphill corner. So we see this diff really dealing with differences in terrain, differences in road camber, and really letting us get power down out of corners and get balance into corners as well. So what does this mean for lap times? Well, at Circuit Florida, we had a previous baseline. Our best baseline was a 134.72 second lap, and we got that down to a 133.76 second lap. So 300ths short of a full second gain just on swapping the diff. We had the exact same set of tires on there, the exact same brake pads. Everything else was basically identical. So, putting a diff in a Ford 8.8, as we saw, not really the hardest thing in the world. It's a little dirty, it's a little filthy, it's a little gross. It's gonna cost you a shirt, and you're gonna have to wash your hair afterwards, which you probably should anyway. But it is worth it, especially this Eaton True Track. Now that it's in there, it's going to be zero maintenance until we part with the car. It is all gear driven. There's really very little to go wrong in there. But really, unless we do something dumb, we're probably never going to have to worry about this diff except for fluid changes, and that is absolutely worth the trouble as far as I'm concerned. Hey, if you like the cool stuff that we are doing on YouTube, we really appreciate a couple of things. You can go right down here. You can hit that subscribe button. You can hit that like button. Both of those, look, I know we're all slaves to the algorithm, but such is the world that we live in. So help a brother out, hit those buttons, and we would definitely appreciate it. Also, you can go to grassrootsmotorsports.com on the web, where you will have access to 40+ years of print magazine editorial, exclusive web content, a forum where you can talk to enthusiasts just like yourself and interact with the staff of Grassroots Motorsports at grassrootsmotorsports.com. We cannot wait to see you there.
Support brands that support Grassroots Motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. Visit crcindustries.com to learn more. Want to see more content like this? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. And for more information, visit us online at grassrootsmotorsports.com.